Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are absolutely thrilled to have in the studio with us today Dr. Fernando Leon Garcia, president of the CETYS University. How are you doing there, Dr. Leon Garcia? Good?
Great, and thank you for having us here, Mr. Schlosberg.
We are absolutely honored. Is it pronounced CETYS, or does it go by a name, or?
It's an acronym.
Okay, right.
When it was founded, it was Centro de Enseñanza Técnica y Superior. But to make it simple, eventually we branded as CETYS University.
Very good. CETYS. Should I call it CETYS?
CETYS University.
I'll call it CETYS University. You've been involved for 50 years. Is that correct?
Yes, on and off. I was doing undergraduate work when I started working in athletics at the institution and student affairs while I was pursuing my doctoral degree. So when you say about 50, it includes that portion of
that counts. What part of athletics were you doing? Did you play sports?
Yeah, basketball. But I was assistant athletic director, and then I became athletic director at the institution.
So what's the mission of the university?
Well, it's an institution that was founded in the 60s, early 60s, trying to develop the whole person, kind of the liberal arts emphasis that you have in the U.S., but trying to make sure that it stressed the development of citizens who could promote community development as well as economic development in the region. So highly qualified, broad knowledge professionals, in particular in business and engineering, but with a liberal arts twist.
Right. Now you look at it in Baja California, correct?
I'm looking at Baja California at a time where anyone who wanted higher ed, they had to go to Guadalajara or Monterrey or Mexico City.
Right.
But this effort, which began on the south side of the border, is now a binational effort as such.
That's great. Yeah, I want to talk about that aspect now. You and I were chatting before the show started, the relationships that you have and are building and have had with our universities on this side, San Diego State with, Dr. De La Torre, of course, and with UCSD, where Brandon goes to school. He's a senior in math and engineering.
Congratulations.
Right? Yeah, exactly. He's going to be graduating relatively soon and so forth. And USD. Talk about those relationships and how important they are.
Yes, I think that when one talks about binational collaboration, one thinks of south-north flow. And that happens. I think it's very advantageous, very synergistic. And so you have simple things such as students on the Mexican side that want to broaden their horizon, try to get a binational education, and they might have a short-term exchange or experience at USD, SDSU, or UCSD, or even Southwestern College. But beyond that, the relationships have grown so that there have been some special programs. For example, double degree, or what accreditors call a collaborative degree, which allows the person who goes through that program to have a Mexican degree and a U.S. degree, which elsewhere you may say, why bother? And of course, we know that in the Cali-Baja Sandijuana region, it is essential if you want to be successful and be competitive. So these relationships have been, they have covered a broad spectrum. They cover something simple, such as student mobility, collaborative degrees, but then there are other projects that involve the community as such. There's an emerging effort, which today is going to be formalized, which is called the Cali-Baja Educational Consortium. And so these are more ambitious types of projects. But the last brief thing I wanted to comment is that south-north flow is also a north-south flow. So that eventually, as CETYS achieved U.S. accreditation, Then we saw an increasing number of students from high schools in South Bay, in Imperial County as such, heading to Tijuana and heading to Mexicali. So you have the flow in both directions. And of course, this is not only educational, it is intended to support the binational cross-border community.
Yeah, and we talk about this quite a bit, and you're fully aware of it in the work at UCSD and folks like Mary Walshock, and who has certainly been laser beamed on this cross-border. Malin Burnham, of course, and you know Malin up on this side. It's the richest border region in the world from so many different ways, from a culture standpoint, from an economic standpoint. So this is just only going to be better to build this up. Talk about that, how critical that is.
Well, I think that the first thing is that both communities, both regions are interrelated. We do have a border. We have to acknowledge that physically it's there. But the dynamics are such that the free flow in both directions, in culture, in society, in economic dynamics, are such that these relationships are essential so that first and foremost, we understand each other. Second, that we seek to collaborate with each other. And third, that we can create synergies that will enhance and make the region much better. So I think that it is something that we acknowledge a few decades ago to something that is becoming, for the future, essential.
Yeah, and part of that, of course, is being able to have access across the border, and certainly making it as easy as possible for folks to go south to Baja and go north to our region as well. How closely do you work with the politicians on both sides of the border?
Well, we work as close as possible. Right. Of course, they have their own higher authorities to respond to. But I think that overall there's great collaboration. I cannot myself make the announcement, but today there will be a very important announcement by CBP that is going to enhance and facilitate the flow for those already legitimately studying, on this side of the border.
Sure.
But I think that that is important. Now, there are other things that are happening that don't have to do with the regulatory part. That is a matter of institutions working together as well. Because of COVID, you have now the use of technology as something more acceptable. We were able to see things where it is a positive contribution and enhancement. So you have the emergence of hybrid education. You have the emergence of online education, which means that if you were accustomed 5-10 years ago, you had to cross every day for every class. Now you don't, to the extent that the institutions have been creative. So you find efforts where instead of 100% face-to-face, it's 60% face-to-face, 40% can be through technology. But then there are other experiments that are being conducted. For example, in the case of Southwestern College, who serves undeniably a good portion of legally registered population that come from the Tijuana site.
Right.
And so we have been experimenting with Southwestern College. Well, if you're serving a portion there, why don't some of your courses that need to be taken face-to-face, they're offered at our Tijuana campus. So we've started experimenting with that. If you serve this higher number of population, why can't we collaborate so that graduation ceremonies, which are a moment to celebrate with the families and friends and all supporters, why can't that be also in Tijuana? So, we've done that. So there's, these might be simple things, but I think are going to go very far of north-south flow for the benefit of collaboration in the binational region.
No, that's going to help that quite a bit. We're chatting with Dr. Fernando Leon Garcia. He is the president of CETYS University. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 20th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things for people in San Diego County, whether it's food insecurity or whether it's homelessness, whether it's art, financial education. They have have just been doing great things for everybody in this region and for more than 60 plus years. Dr. Leon Garcia, you can't help but talk about higher ed and know that there's so many things changing with the technology. We were chatting a little bit about that innovation zone that Dr. De La Torre is working with our friends of the Chancellor of the Community College District. How are you folks keeping up with technology that seems to change every second?
Well, I think that we are definitely working in an organized manner. And in fact, I can share with you that the board of CETYS University agreed to engage in a major digital transformation effort at the institution. And so we're going to engage in an investment of $8 to $10 million to make sure that in terms of ERP systems and the technology that we're using, it is up to date and ahead of our times in something as simple as how do you register a student, how do you make sure the information flows appropriately, to also seeing how it is that it can be incorporated into the technology that facilitates learning. On the other hand, accompanying that, as a result of COVID and trying to see how that impacted education, we just unveiled, and we're in the second year of what we call a multi-experiential model. And what that does is say, if we believe before that 100% of learning had to occur face-to-face, that is no longer the case. So we're incorporating into not special programs, all programs, a certain degree of hybrid, which means part face-to-face, part technology, a certain percent of online courses as well, because that is the wave of the future. If you want to find a graduate who is appropriately prepared, regardless of their profession, they need to be able to cope with all of these environments. So we've engaged in that. Of course, the most serious effort in terms of higher ed is how do we work with the faculty so that the faculty will not be behind the students, but will in fact be accompanying the students in that intention to prepare for the future.
Well, and I think and with that, one of the organizations that we work with quite a bit, I mentioned to you before the show started, Classroom of the Future Foundation, is all focused on college and career, and not college or career, college and career. If you choose not to go to college, that's up to you, but we think you should try to be on a pathway for that. But the career is so critical. And I think it's something that the universities can do a better job with, I think, to be honest with you. And they're doing a lot better job than when I was going to school. With that, talk about how that's important when you link with those high school districts and so forth, and your university and pathways.
Well, I think that what we need to put on the table is there's a debate, and it's still an ongoing debate. And the debate is, are we here to prepare well-rounded citizens? What does that mean? And then there are those who will argue that that's a long-term engagement, And then you try to push for, well, what are you doing in terms of employability? That'll take care of itself. And so I think there's a sense of denial across the higher education community in terms of the responsibility. We have to do both. We have to do both.
100%.
Yeah, we have to do both. And so, yes, we have gen ed, we have a liberal arts education, and that's supposed to prepare any individual regardless of their profession. But then we have a responsibility of whatever it is that they have chosen as a major to make sure that they are prepared so that they are gaining the appropriate employability, at least on their first job. We know that the recent histories, you're going to change 5 times. No, with AI and others, you're going to change more than 5 times.
A lot more.
During your lifetime.
Right.
But the initial responsibility is about making sure that they're prepared, number one, for whatever profession they studied, but number 2, that they have understood that there's a need for continuous development throughout their life, which some refer to as lifelong learning. So it's developing the whole person, employability, lifelong learning. And that leads to, well-rounded citizens who are really contributing and achieving their personal and, professional aspirations.
We'll come back from break. I want to talk about you guys are a true international school. Some of your students represent 35 different countries, are in 35 countries, 8,300 students and so forth, which only benefits everybody. Heaven forbid we actually learn from different cultures. What a shock that is, right? We've known that since people were walking upright, but we tend to ignore some of the things that we should. I also want to talk about some of the challenges that are facing you folks. When maybe being south of the border or not, that has nothing to do with it, and how we can on this side, work with you, or how our listeners can support that when we return with Dr. Fernando Leon Garcia. He is the president of CETYS University in Baja California. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We will be right back after this short break.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 20th year. So honored to have in the studio with us today Dr. Fernando Leon Garcia. He is the president of CETYS in Baja California. And just talking about the wonderful footprint they have, the relationship with some of the fine universities on our side of the border, and the cross collaboration, which is we should be doing anyway, 24/7, 365. You guys are absolutely the international of international schools. You've got people from all over the world attending the university. Talk about how proud you are of that diversity.
Well, we're doing the best we can. I think that during current times, we cannot envision a university education that does not involve some kind of global exposure, some kind of global interaction. So that's number one. And it is because of that ideal that we pursue, that each and every one of our students is exposed to a context beyond their own. And we start with the border region, of course. The number one country with whom our students have an experience is the U.S.
Of course.
Second is Spain. One of the metrics that we use is what percent of the graduating class has had an international experience. And of course, it's very rare to find 100. Institutions such as Worcester Polytechnic Institute, 100%. I believe that in the case of USD, it's 80 plus. In the case of CETYS, we're at 76%. It took us about 15 years to get there, but it's number one in Mexico. And so I think that we need to, as an institution, we need to make sure that we embed into their experience this access and this possibility of learning about other cultures, of being there to the extent possible, and if not, that through technology, we are achieving an approximation into that.
Right.
So very important.
Yeah, you mentioned the word access. And if you got the greatest faculty, the instructors, the greatest content, the greatest labs, the greatest infrastructure, if the kids don't have access to it, it doesn't do any good.
Right.
Talk about the financial aid. It's so important.
Right. When the institution was founded, it focused on developing the citizens and developing, professionals who could support the economy. But of course, that means you have to identify the talent. And once that you have identified the talent, you have to provide access. Some can pay tuition, others cannot. So when the institution was founded, it set out with a commitment to make sure that it supported access to high quality education. And so 8 out of every 10 students have some form of financial aid, 8 out of every 10, which allows us so that we're serving a broad spectrum of society. And this we have managed to achieve and maintain despite the institution growing from 52 originally to over 8,300. And of course, this links us also to the community because on the one hand, it means the institution providing scholarship or financial aid. Number 2, working with business and industry on both sides of the border. Number 3, identifying individuals who believe in education, as the instrument for future development. So, providing financial aid, providing support to the students, plus the hand-holding that's required for them to be able to progress and graduate is essential.
Which all leads to, increased social mobility. That is absolutely laser beamed on you. And I'm not sure if you have done work with the president Neufeld up in Cal State San Marcos. They're the, I think, leading university in the United States with social mobility. Wasn't a term necessarily that I was aware of, when I was going to school, because it probably wasn't a term that was used quite a bit. But talk about how important that is.
Yeah, no, it's very important. I think that there are several ways, of course, of looking at that. There are now some metrics which are used in the U.S. In our case, what we try to find out is going back to one of the things that are expected of universities, we do track employability. So in terms of employability, even with COVID, the range has been between 92 to 97% employability in 1 year or less after graduation.
And that's pretty impressive.
So that's number 1. Number 2 is that you should not wait until the graduate has completed his studies to make sure that he or she is involved in any community or social, responsibility related projects. So as part of the reinforcement to the development of the whole individual, all students are expected to carry out some kind of community effort. And there are also some honors type programs on leadership that focus on social responsibility. So the main leaders as such are organized around a social responsibility effort so that they go out to remote communities and try to identify problems where as a team they can work. And then a different aspect, of course, of being socially responsible is sustainability. And so there we have numerous efforts as well that we carry out, some that were initiated by students and that are expanding across the 3 campuses that we have. We call it zero waste. And then on the other hand, just like some of the campuses here in San Diego County, you try to make energy efficient, light sensitive type of facilities so that you are a sustainable, increasingly sustainable university to the extent that it is possible. So we're working on all of those fronts to make sure that we are linking, responding, supporting the community.
We're chatting with Dr. Fernando Leon Garcia. He's the president of CETYS University in Baja California. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlossberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed and Credit Union. Talk a little bit about that as you folks are, making inroads in the collaboration, whether it's with SDSU or USD or the Southwestern College and our great community college district on this. How do you collaborate with the businesses on both sides of the border? Is there a lot of collaboration between those businesses in Cali Baja and those on our side? Talk about that.
Yes, I'll give you several examples. In the case of electronics, there's a corporation that has a presence here in San Diego County as well as in Mexicali. It doesn't have an operation in Tijuana, but it has one in Mexicali. Skyworks. They know about it, so it isn't a commercial, but they know about it. So several years ago, they were trying to enhance the expertise within their own workforce that related to radio frequency. Okay. So their needs translated into a specialized master's program. So we said, okay, so there's Skyworks, this is what they need. And by the way, we're partners of UCSD, and UCSD is also a partner of Skyworks. Why don't we put together this master's level program that is going to respond to their specific needs? So we did that. We partnered with them, and we did that. In the case of medical device, it didn't involve a university within this area, but it did involve a U.S. university. And again, it was a business-university partnership on both sides of the border that addressed a specific need. And again, they said, our type of manufacturing and medical devices is moving in this direction. So, well, what you need is this. However, you're already in Minnesota doing that with this university who happens to be our partner. Why don't we set up a program? And lo and behold, you have that. So there's that, and there's continuing development type of efforts, where again, we partner either through mainstream college or school of one of the universities, or through continuing ed, or through executive education, so that we bring a solution. Another more recent effort involves semiconductors. I won't mention the corporation, but there's a big corporation on this side of the border that has an operation on the Mexican side of the border. And they want to enhance the level of preparation and training. So we will be receiving specialized equipment that exists in San Diego, so that on the Tijuana side, we can speed up the level at which that corporation can move forward. So you see many of these, and there are other types of projects as well. With University of San Diego, we have a double degree or collaborative degree, right, where it's an MBA, but then there's leadership from the social side. So again, it's a very interesting way of looking at the principle of complementarity. To be better, it doesn't need to be the same thing. It could be things you don't have that make you stronger. Yeah, there's no question about it. So a question we always ask folks that are in the education space, whether it's our K-12 superintendents, community college, or of course our university like yourself, is AI disrupting the heck out of everything? You can't ignore it because it's with us. So how are you folks playing with that? Well, I think, we're members of the International Association of University Presidents. It's a worldwide organization, and it had at its most recent conference, the theme was AI. And so AI is here to stay, and the least that we can do as universities is to acknowledge what it is good for, what it is not, and what it is that can be incorporated into the appropriate area. It doesn't mean that pedagogy has to be and is the only arena in which it can impact. It's also in our support services, in our administration. And so what colleges and universities need to do first and foremost is acknowledge that, see what stage of development they happen to be in, see what culture is the prevailing environment within the organization, and then move forward and try to adjust scope and make change. What can our listeners do? We've been doing this show for 20 years, and our listeners tend to be very much like your students. You give them something to do that reaches out to the community and all that. What can we do to enhance what you folks are already doing at CETYS University? Well, for those who are really interested, the old way, not too old way, but old way for the youngsters, www.cetys.mx. But then again, I think that it's making sure that you share with relevant friends, family, constituents, that if you are interested in a globally competitive education, that there is an institution along the border that's called CETYS University, that partnering with Southwestern, with SDSU, with USD, and with UCSD, and perhaps even with the emerging University of Chula Vista that has been discussed, here, you can have a more powerful or far-reaching educational and university preparation. Promise me you'll come back
And when you come back, bring in a colleague from one of those universities and a student. And we'd love to have the perspective of a student from CETYS talking about what they're learning, what they like the best about it, and then one of your colleagues, whether it's at SDSU or USD or Southwestern College, and we'd love to hear that conversation.
Pinky promise?
We just did a pinky promise. It means it's official. Maybe it was on YouTube. We'll see if it was or not. But Dr. Fernando Leon Garcia, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We're going to look forward to having you back on. He's the president of CETYS University in Baja California, with one of your colleagues from another university and one of your students. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.